Hey guys, welcome to another session of RBTL. We're gonna look at the dev notes for the August version of our Balance Adjust preview. So a couple things. I don't think any of them are like really broken. They're definitely my highlights, and I'll summarize my highlights after. But definitely not something like I think ambitious Tywin level or Athletica level kind of brokenness in the past two patches. Those are pretty big deals. But this one I would say is pretty balanced, and just some speculation based on the heroes that they have laid out, especially the 3-star ones, that I feel that could potentially be some specialty change heroes coming. But we'll see. First things first, Melissa. So Melissa already got a dev buff. It's interesting that like she was already useful after the original dev buff, which is technically the after killing on the S2, her immortality, like it resets, so you could keep doing it technically. Like theoretically speaking, if you keep killing, she just stays immortal until she gets stripped or she can't kill. I would have to say that with the Remnant Violet out, there are two really easy ways to deal with him, I would say: Falconer Cleary and Melissa. Now, Falconer Cleary always had the ability to soul burn all those 20 souls, so if you're going to do it on the first turn, you have to have a mage on the team. To ignore resistance, you can strip, you can defense break, provoke Moonlight Violets. That's a really easy way to deal with him. Melissa always had the 15% chance of him resisting the strip. So what she does is that she does dispel the buff. I learned this much later, actually. I didn't even know this about her until people were starting to think about counters to Remnant Violet. But she does dispel the buffs before she does the attack. So Melissa will strip Remnant Violet's evasion buff, and then therefore he can't dodge, or technically can't dodge unless he's on Moonlight Dreamblade. And then you pretty much one-shot him from there, and that's it. I don't know if it's really smart for Smilegate to buff Melissa the way they buffed her, because I feel that the way they buffed her is exactly to counter Remnant Violet. Like, I almost feel like there's no other reason though. But so that I'll have to say is like a pretty bad move in the case that Remnant Violet, like literally the banner just finished. Some people, you know, felt that even on the last week, after knowing that RB is coming up, some people decided, I'm gonna pull Remnant Violet, I'm gonna skip on Arbiter Vildred, because the usefulness. And now with more counters to him, like direct counters, that's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad move. I mean, the only way you could survive at this point is that if you resist the curse. But you really can't anymore as well, because you can ignore effect resistance in this skill now. So Blood Bloom is the skill that can actually strip. I would say it's like the setup for her strongest skill, which is the S2. Well, her S1 is actually very strong as well, but the S2 and the S1 both are very strong in Melissa's kit. The S3 is like the setup, right? And the fact that you can grant the extra turn even without a critical hit now is a pretty big deal, because let's say if you have like 95% crit rate, you don't crit on the skill, like whoop-de-doo, you strip it and you do land the curse, and then they're dead on like the S2 if you crit, right? So now, like, not even building at 100% crit, there's like even less risk, because the S3 was never meant to be like the end all damage. It was just a setup for the S2. So I don't know, man. Like, it's a great buff for Melissa, I have to say. It's a great buff. The ignore effect resistance is like a super sweet touch. I mean, like, that's what I really loved about Cowrick when he was built. And also, where's Cowrick's buff, by the way? Like, he got an EE, but that's not a buff. This ignore effect resistance, she can hold her own book. Yes, you can say that, well, Jagan, then she can't go into Remnant Violet with Moonlight Dreamblade, right? Because most people, if you use Melissa, you would just run an Oath Key to kill Remnant Violet. I'm talking about like a 1-for-1 counter. I mean, the other aspect is that your Melissa has to be decently fast. I know a lot of people don't run really fast Remnant Violets. I know that there has been a very famous one, I think by a Korean player, 285 speed Remnant Violet, and it can still hit hard. So if you're contesting for speed, let's say an RTA, yeah, Melissa's got to be pretty fast if you want to use her solo Remnant Violet. Ignore effect resistance, she can hold her own book. You could draft multiple mages or use multiple mages. I do that, like I use that technique as well. And she can still hold the Oath Key. So yeah, fantastic buff. The buff itself is great. It's just that yeah, it's definitely like a pretty sour thing for them to put like right away when people are just like maybe just finished moloing their Remnant Violet or whatever, you know. So yeah, great buff, but just not a good timing, I think. But all in Cezanne, the Ghost Haunt is his S1, attacks, summons the Evil Spirit, attacks 2 enemies now. So yeah, they're kind of liking these two target hitting type heroes now for the S1s. I feel that it's more of like, if it's an S1 that doesn't really do much on the heroes overall, like kit, they generally start upping it to 2 targets. I mean, Champion Zerato got that treatment as well when he got buffed. Although he because he does poison, it's not as effective in terms of, I think, PvP. The Baal and Cezanne actually is decent. Like, he's a decent debuffer. His S3 packs like some of the most disgusting debuffs, like altogether. 3 debuffs, and pretty high chance. I think it's 85. Defense break, unhealable, and speed down, I think is like something like that. The Dark Cloud is now 3 turns. Yeah, so that's the S2, S3, might be S2. I think I was looking into this before, but yeah. So I don't think that even yet he got a buff before. Even yet, I don't think he is a good PvP hero. I think that, like, for PvE, he had always been solid, but with the limitation on Molagora, yeah, Dark Cloud is S2. I just looked. With the limitation on Mola, I don't think anybody's gonna really use him. I mean, the combination of his debuffs are great, but you're really there to maybe for the speed down or whatever, but you need a strip before him. So that in and of itself, I don't think it makes him PvP usable yet. I know that a lot of the buffs that they're doing, they're trying to gear these heroes to be PvP usable, and I do agree they should do that, because this, after all, is a PvP game, or very, very heavy PvP game. But I don't think that's gonna move anybody to build him. I'm not quite sure though. I might be wrong. I don't think it's enough. Araminta is actually not bad. Catalyst, as the S2, attacks all enemies with the catalytic explosion, making them unhealable for 2 turns, and then before increasing attack of all allies for 2 turns. So instead of a single target skill, it used to be that it's a single target. If the enemy is burned, then it would do additional damage to everyone. So AOE, it becomes AOE. But now it's just like straight up AOE attack, which is pretty good, because because her turn cooldown is actually very, very fast. And yeah, and then the Fire Pillar is just increased damage dealt. I don't think that we know how much damage dealt. Like, both of them, Catalyst and Fire Pillar, both damage dealt increase. It would be very interesting to see what kind of mods she's gonna get instead. This could mean that she might make a return. Her S3 is very solid, burns and stuns, and you can ignore effect resistance as well. So in a way, like, she can contest with ML Araminta. The only thing is that the damage mods don't affect the burn damage. So if you're gonna use her as like a burn damage dealer, you might not be able to get the effect you need. So again, depending on the mods, you might be able to build her with crit rate, crit damage in mind. Of course, with some effectiveness. Probably not gonna be as crowd control-y as ML Araminta. So ML Araminta, I think her primary role now is, yeah, you do burn damage, but you're really there to stun and then continually stun with her annoying passive with Abyssal Crown. You won't be able to really do that with Araminta because the cooldown that you have to wait. Whereas ML Araminta's passive you can spam the AoE as long as the target is burned. So yeah, again, it depends on the mods given here. She might make a return. Self attack buffer with the AoE attack buffer, and having 100% burns and a 50% stun is not a bad thing. Plus ignore resist. Roaming Warrior Leo, I will admit that I actually have to look into him to see if he's going to be usable. Like understand his full kit, and I think outside of people not having Mola and maybe running him for meme, I think he's actually usable now. He will in effect have sort of like a, what do you say, like a decent crowd control hero, but I feel that you might not need to use him specifically in order to get what you need in terms of like a crowd controller. He's actually able to do his S3, which is Go Raku, attacks all enemies with Raku up to a 90% chance to decrease the speed and then plant a bomb for 2 turns. He can, with a 20 soul burn, he can actually grant an extra turn, so you can do that as long as they don't have immunity, of course. And then go right into Fire Shock Bomb. So Fire Shock Bomb now with the buff up to 100% chance to increase the skill cooldown by 1 turn, which is fantastic. And then decreases the skill cooldown of Go Raku by 1 turn. And then at the end of the turn, detonates the bomb inflicted on the enemy. And then the bomb is that it makes them immobilized for 1 turn. So I think it displays it in the game as a stun, if I remember correctly. I have a ML Leo, but I never even took him out of my storage because to me he's ugly, and he trolls me all the time, like especially when I was looking for Ox slots. He trolls me a lot, so I have a specific vendetta against him. But yeah, so he has Goraku naturally has up to a 4 turn cooldown. So after you use it, if you grant an extra turn, that's already 1 minus, and then if you use Fire Shock Bomb, you decrease the skill cooldown again by 1 turn. So realistically, he is sort of a spammable stunner, and increasing the skill cooldown for the enemy. So it's a single target. Single target for the S2 for the Fire Shock Bomb. It's still pretty good. Like you can stun them, you can push increase their skill cooldown, so you can keep them at bay. I guess he would need to be built as like high effectiveness kind of ranger. He's pretty squishy though. That's one main problem with him. He's pretty squishy. So like I think his kit is okay, but his stats don't really merit him. I don't know. I'm kind of. He doesn't take a ton of Mola. I just don't know if you would build him, and I don't want to. I really don't want to, unless he's just like somehow someone's figured out like the most OP way to use him. I don't think so. Benevolent Roman, I have to say, is probably one of my favorites in this. It doesn't seem like an OP buff, but at the same time it does. It's not as OP as when Green Bazaar got his dev buff. Now that was disgusting. Like the ignore effect resistance, like with 20 soul burn, when he can carry it, he can carry the book himself. That was like questionable for me. I kept on thinking that they miswrote. Benevolent Roman doesn't give me that impression, but it definitely is good. If people know Broman, his passive is that he can resist, like up to 100% resist completely any sort of CR pushback. So Like the way that, you know, sometimes I take or control Basars or keep them controlled is that use like a Fire Litica or something like that, and I could push him back, right? I could push him back and put a speed down on him. But Benevolent Roman, you can't do that, and he can't miss. So with Holiday You Fiend coming out, which is like a direct Basar counter, I'm talking in Guild War defense. So people who run Basar in Guild War defense, tough luck. I really do think that he really won't work anymore, especially with Holiday You Fiend. And even if he does work, you still have to have some kind of primary damage that will be able to hit Holiday You Fiend before Basar even gets a turn. And even with that, you're still kind of going against Fire Hero. You Fiend with the right heroes like ML Haste or ML Angie. If you place a Basar with like an RB, which is like probably the most common comp that Basar defense right now, is you have to pair with an RB. You're not gonna really do much. Like Holiday You Fiend can be built like really tanky, and then greater attack buff, so she can take out that team quite easily. Now the question is like, will Benevolent Roman replace that slot? With the ways that you can counter Basar, like you either just tank it out, straight up Champion Zerato, and you tank it out, or you do what I do, Litica somehow in there, you push them back or whatever, and then or Kayron, just, you know, Moonlight Dreamblade, hope for the miss. Benevolent Roman, you can't do that. But that's on a defense team, so it's totally different from Basar. Basar is still more loaded as a AI hero. But then Benevolent Roman now with this mana fundamentals, his S3, if you, now the soul burn is on this 20 soul burn. Again, he can carry his own book, but you may want to run him on Abyssal Crown. It might be very disgusting as well. Grants an extra turn. Okay, so that in and of itself is pretty amazing, because what you can do is you can dispel the 2 buffs. Now this is previous Roman buff, was that you could dispel a buff and then you can silence. Now it's 2. So it could go through the FCC pre-barrier or the Bastion of Pelusia barrier with immunity. You can still strip it, and then 75% chance to silence for 2 turns. If you're doing this in AoE, there's a highly likelihood you're going to get one of them silenced. All right. So then once you grant an extra turn, you can now go into Mana Arrow, which doubles the effect of Mana Burst, which the Mana Burst is attacks all enemies, decreasing combat readiness by a random amount of an increase to 15 to 50% CR pushback. Like I've already said before, Ice Roman and Benevolent Roman have this kind of interesting way of just to push back. The randomness of the pushback can really screw up people's turn order. This is my critique of people running an RTA, people running an attack buffer with Little Queen Charlotte, and then somehow, let's say you run an Assassin Sid or something, or a faster hero than that Little Queen Charlotte, you proc her CR boost when you crit, and then she goes before the attack buffer. Things like that really do mess up how a team should work, and I really do think that Mana Arrow with this like random combat readiness, now with the minimum increase by another 5%, which is a huge deal. That usually is like a 10, on average about a 10 speed difference between a hero, 5%. That will definitely throw people off. And like I said, the odds are on Benevolent Roman's side. I think that he can be a very decent replacement to Basar if you need some kind of like heavy mage dispeller and crowd controller. The only thing is, of course, that his silence is only 75%. But like I said, the odds are on your side to be able to land at least one of them. So then you'd be able to perhaps crowd control them through the Mana Arrow. Again, there's no way you can compare him to a Basar, but he's definitely a decent pocket pick. I think going forward in World Arena, high-end players who have the ability to gear multiple heroes, Benevolent Roman will be one of them. I myself, if I had the like resources and the time, I would probably build him, but only pretty much for that role. It's a bit random. I may think about using him in Guild War, offense and defense wise, but Basar is just ignoring effect resistance is too big of a deal, especially on an offense team. So I still place Bizarre as a stronger strip than Benevolent Roman, but definitely a very, very strong buff. Moonlight 3, so we're talking about the 3 stars now. Pilot looks very good now. I think people, I think we'll be able to see pilots in PvP now. There are quite a lot of single target light elemental nukers now. Again, Little Control being one of them. And Pilot is able to now stack with Will, stack the defense buff, or the defense quicker now. So the increased defense is increased. So it's exactly the same amount of defense, but now it can stack up to 3 times, which means just it takes less time for it to max stack. Pilot has very, very, very good stats in terms of the tankiness, but of course, being a Cancer Knight does suffer from speed. The speed is very slow, but you could still build pilots up to 150 speed or something, and I think for the use, that might be enough. The maintain position now provokes for 1 turn and then grants a barrier. So there's a lot of control, and it's very very self-sustainable. Maintain position is the S3. Yeah, grants a barrier to all allies for 2 turns, and then damage dealt and barrier strength proportional to the caster's defense. So overall defense, so even with the passive from Will being stacked, that will affect the barrier. I think 3-star heroes now, as soon as you get a decent buff and you can see a use for them, I would say definitely work on it, because yes, we are gonna get some MOLA adjustment. I would say for those who didn't see that Korean stream, we are gonna get one to deal with the friendship levels and stuff. We are gonna get a slight modification, but it's nowhere near enough for the amount of heroes that we need to invest in before we fully use them in like World Arena or competitive PvP. Azalea is quite interesting. I never liked Azalea just because, again, I think she's pretty ugly. I'm so biased. But I mean, the buff made me look into her entire skill, and I think she could be okay. The decreased defense for 2 turns is definitely the most exciting part. I mean, if you don't know how to buff a hero, make them become an AoE defense breaker, people are gonna look into it, especially if it's free, right? It's a 3-star. Warrior, Azalea is a warrior, and pretty good stats all around, even for 3-star. I was surprised that she's pretty tanky, being a 3-star. She is able to siphon back her own health, able to provoke, and I think guarantee a provoke too on her S2. But I don't know. I think the Azalea and Adelaide here have potential to be the somewhat of a specialty change coming. Now I did hear that they're saying that Numinous Vinca, that's what she calls herself, the archer, the 3-star fire ranger, may be getting the specialty change. But I really do think that these 3 stars are getting primed potentially for a specialty change. I just, again, like I said, like Azalea, never seen anyone use her. She never caught my eye because her design to me isn't waifu enough. But like out of the blue, they just buff them. Yeah, I get they buff like heroes that you don't use, but they also buff really meta already used heroes, and they make them even stronger. So like, why these ones? Again, that's a bit too much speculation for my taste, but I do think that like 3-star specialty change right now is like one of the things that we're all looking forward to. We always like, you know, when's the SC Elson coming or whatever. Adelaide is very nice as well. Adelaide is very squishy. Sagittarius Mage, I think that's Vivian's star sign. No, wait. Yeah, I think it is. But very fast. Very fast-based speed. Deals huge damage to all enemies, sealing a spell up to 85% chance to dispel 1 buff each. Before 85% chance to increase the seal cooldowns for 1 turn. very, very nice. Just be able to dispel that. They definitely at least are thinking towards the meta in terms of like people might be running first turn immunity. So if you're ever going to use Adelaide at all for that skill, it's best to have some way to dispel it. And I think dispelling from a mage makes sense even from a lore perspective. Soul Burn ignores effect resistance, which that definitely makes it a lot better, but that's the only things that he has changed. The rest, his passive and stuff like that, very, very, very niche, I think, for PvP. While still cool. I mean, if he's squishy and he can't survive long enough for his passive to work, he doesn't really work as a hero. That's why I do think that potentially we might see some specialty change between these ones. I think Adelaide more than Azalea myself. But anyways, mark that. If it happens, then you can say, hey, Jagan predicted it. If it doesn't, then you can say, ha ha. Chaos Inquisitor, I looked at this, its improvements. The question is he still going to be used? I don't think so. The reason is because his base damage stats are too low. I think that's the problem. Everything in his skill tree getting upgraded here is very cool, and I think, I mean, outside of Falconer Cleary's like skill tree got nerfed, I don't think we've ever seen a specialty change where their skill tree got buffed. This is the first time we've seen it. I might be wrong, but I think it is. Regardless, I mean, increased proc rate, increased combat readiness, increased effect chance, there's nothing wrong with it. I think the only issue is that if people are saying that he does poo-poo damage, and I do agree his mods are quite low to start. So even if you build him a really high crit damage and high attack, and he really benefits from flat attack in case people are looking into building him, he's still not right now, at least compared with the, unable to, bypass his percent of HP, this kind of niche. ML Siren or Tempest Siren is a lot better, stronger overall. Tempest Siren got the buff on the last month, the last patch. Very, very strong buff. You can actually see her being used a lot now. We actually just faced the guild today that ran ML Siren on Guild War defense. Although I don't think that she's that good on Guild War defense, I think in RTA she's pretty solid, depending on the draft, of course. I don't think Inquisitor will have that same effect. That's how I would put it. Acquired soul improvement, I think this is the last thing I'm going to talk about here, and then maybe one thing about ML Ken, but yeah, so this I heard throughout the day that people even made Reddit posts about this, both good and bad, saying that certain heroes are too broken like this, or this is actually nerfing a hero. I myself will have to look into like all of the case scenarios. This definitely changes though, like the way we strategize now, like a lot, like throughout. Like, was this a necessary change? I'm not quite sure. So I mean, they say it's acquired souls improvement. It is technically, because based on the title, yeah, you are acquiring souls more, so yes, it is an improvement. But is it overall better? I'm not quite sure. I can see the pros and cons. Like, obviously, if you're only focused on, let's say, PvP but AI based, because the AI doesn't get souls, like they don't really care about it, then it's fully beneficial to the attacker, so to the player. So if you're doing Guild War, you're doing Arena, fully beneficial for you. In World Arena, then this becomes a bit more complicated. Certain heroes can, like Ambitious Tywin, for example, is able to spam his S3 even more, because he gets soul burn. So one thing about Ambitious Tywin right now, why he's so disgusting, is that his stun lock potential, I think, is the highest right now compared to every single, including mages that have Abyssal Crown. He has probably the highest potential to stun lock an entire team, and that's because he can soul burn and reduce the cooldown for his S3, which is the stun. But his S3 acquires 3 souls. So if you soul burned it in the previous way it worked, if you soul burned it, he would gain no souls from that. All his souls would need to be generated through the rest of the team, which is still pretty easy because you already hear how cancerous it is from top players. The Ambitious Taiwan's S3 stun spam, it's crazy. But now he can generate 3 souls doing it himself, so it's even easier for him to collect that soul back. So it's pretty one-sided. I mean, the opponent would have to be running like Assassin Sid or whatever, just to, and even Assassin Sid might not even be the answer, but just to keep their souls away. Otherwise, Ambitious Taiwan just got an indirect buff technically. Other heroes I heard and read on Reddit, I'm not gonna go through them all, getting buffs, getting nerfs here and there. Oh, someone actually said that A-Taiwan got a nerf as well, for heroes that can do double turns on Soulburn, or have a double turn innate, so like C-Dom, J-Kise and stuff like that. Saying that if A-Taiwan steals the souls from the like with the Elbrus or whatever with his S1, like sometimes they're not able to burn certain skills, but now they can still do it. So talking about cleaving teams. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Yeah, so some improvements here. I don't really want to talk about that. Some new descriptions. So these are not changes to the skill itself, but the description. It is pretty interesting though that like we found this out through other players experimenting and actually investing the Mola into like martial artist Ken's S1. To be able to realize that his counterattack from his S2 actually does have increased damage. So finally, after almost 2 years, they finally changed the skill description to actually reflect. So a lot of people, I mean, who don't follow Reddit or don't follow videos, they may have ML Ken and they never knew that upgrading the S1 actually increases his S2 damage. But now there you go, you have that. No, I just wanted to kind of laugh at that. Sometimes there are things that I think Smilegate should action upon much quicker, especially if there's like false understandings on stuff. At least like even just even not an in-game description notice like change, but just like let us know in general. So anyways, that's it for my thoughts on this balance adjustment preview. Like I said, I don't think nothing is very broken here, at least not that I can see. But Benevolent Roman, I think it's a very good one. Araminta, I have to wait to see. Roman Warrior Leo looks kind of interesting, and then Melissa is now a very good option to build if you're having problems facing Remnant Violet. Very solid option. I think say that she's probably one of the best ones in and of itself. Like Falcon Artillery, like I said, is very great, but you have the problem that you still need to soul burn it, whereas Melissa could technically soul burn herself. It's the only fact is that are you going to run an Oath Key on her, or are you going to run a Toggle Hall's Ancient Book? Regardless, if you run a Toggle Hall's Ancient Book on her and you're not using her to counter ML Violet, it's still solid. It's a really good buff, I would have to say. So Melissa, Benevolent Roman, probably my top picks in this one. Anyways, I'm going to end this here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Which ones kind of stand out to you, and share like your big brain theory crafts on how to use these buffed heroes, because sometimes, you know, I can't think of every single thing. So definitely you know, willing to read your comments and stuff like that, so definitely feel free to share. I'm gonna end this for the video recording. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.